Welcome, everyone, to the Garden of Thought podcast and streaming live on the Sports Jedi Network and presented by the Sports Jedi Network and the Wrestling Soup Network and myself. A guest today, returning guest. Yes, that guy I've known since third grade and still know. Joey Restivo, how are you?
Great. How you doing? Just trying to keep cool here. It's really hot, but I'm sure it's hot up there too.
Yeah, it is, but I don't go outside, so I'm a shut-in. So it's not by court order. It's self-imposed for the most part. Okay, and it's for that most part that I'm not elaborating on. So today is July 5th. It is a holiday weekend. I wasn't really always even intending to do a show this weekend, but I'm here. I have no plans. I have no friends. I have no life. So I said, anybody want to do a show? And actually, Joey produced this concept, the idea of what today's topic would be. And I'm like, can you do it on the 5th? He's like, yeah, I'm good on the 5th. I'm like, all right. And as Joey said a bunch of times, first of all, he doesn't have social media to find and follow him. He's in a local Doors cover band, which we'll talk about at the end, I'm sure. But unless you're in the Wilmington, North Carolina area, you probably can't do much with that. And he's semi-retired, so he is absolutely nothing to plug to most of the world except for the North Carolina ad. He's just here because he likes to be here. And the topic he picked was Logan's Run. So, Joe, why'd you pick Logan's Run? What prompted that?
Well, it just must have popped up on my feed on the apps on the television because it's a 50-year anniversary of it. So I ended up watching it, and I know sometimes you like to tie things back to a timely topic. So I'm saying 50 years ago. It's been that long. So I was just thinking back to when did I first see this movie? Did I see it in the movie theaters? Did we somehow sneak in? I think it was rated. There was no PG-13 at the time. So and just thinking of that quad theater in Limbrook, I think a couple of us did sneak in because if you stuck in like in the middle of the movie, there was no one standing in front of that because they collected tickets in front of each one of the theaters. So I think we just had this thing down where wait 10 to 15 minutes. You missed the beginning of the movie. You get to see this movie anyway that they wouldn't sell you a ticket to because your parents certainly wouldn't take you see this PG movie. So I really just started thinking a lot about it. I watched it again and it really impacted me. I probably saw it maybe 10 times in my lifetime. But there's some really classic scenes in it. And I just think it's really just interesting. What about you? What are your thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting movie. It's always stuck with me. I don't think I've ever read the book. So it's always been just a movie to me. But it's in that genre of dystopian movies, very much I don't know if it's a ripoff or an homage to Brave New World. I don't know which book came first, to be frank with you. Hopefully you know the difference. Obviously, I saw this movie before I had ever heard of anything called Brave New World. It came out in the 70s, and I saw it in the 70s. And in the 70s, there was some, full frontal and regular PG, which I guess is probably what led to PG-13 coming out. I don't know what, in the late 80s, I guess, or early 90s, PG-13 became a thing, that intermediary range between PG and R. And that's Rams fan. He said, "Don't mind me. I'm picking tulips in the garden of thought." It's all right. They'll grow back quickly. I can't promise you they'll grow back as tulips. They may grow back as the Andrea 3000. What was from Little Shop of Horrors?
I don't know.
You know, remember that the play? I remember the movie with Rick Moranis. Anyway,
well, Steve Martin was in the movie too, right?
Yes, he was the dentist, the evil dentist. Yeah, absolutely, he was great in that. So Logan's Run starred Michael York, who is not the same as Professor Michael York, who's been on the show like 8 times now, and always says he has a good time, but never looks like he's having a good time. Also, Richard Jordan, who is a character actor who was really big for a while between in Gettysburg. He had a major role in Gettysburg, and he was big for a few years before then. After that, he's always been one of those character actors that you've seen. As far as other named actors that you recognize, Farrah Fawcett, who was Farrah Fawcett Majors at the time, married to the Bionic Man, the $6 Million Man, Lee Majors. Um, and my God, Farrah Fawcett was just a ridiculously spectacular woman. In during the week, you're telling me about the female lead of the movie. I think her name was Andrea Gutter or something. And you're talking to me. I'm like, everybody looked like a regular human next to the goddess that was Farrah
Yeah.
Fawcett. I mean, she looked like she descended from Mount Olympus itself in the form of Aphrodite, except without much of a brain. Um,
Yeah, and acting was not very good in this movie.
no, her acting was terrible, but I it okay, so it might have been good because I think part of the point of the movie is that most of the people were supposed to be mealy brained. Like they were all conditioned from life, from inception, to be in a certain age group to know very little except pleasure and whatever. And obviously there were different levels of thinkers. It was
Oh, so
harder.
like a caste system basically put in place by the whatever the overlords were, where some people are just going to be doctors and some people are going to just be like medical assistants,
Yeah,
whatever she was.
and I think that listen, I'm not trying to give her too much credit or whatever, but I do think she's not that bad an actress. I mean, she was in Charlie's Angels and other things, and you know, I'm not saying that.
Oh, I was saying her acting in this movie was just not that spectacular compared to the people she was up against. And
No, no, but
so she didn't have much of a scene. She had a couple of scenes in it. You know, one where she has this awakening that maybe that they're really telling the truth. They went to this other place and she found him there, and that's when she was. I just remember not really just maybe it was she's just supposed to be so ditzy that it came across as bad acting. I don't know.
Well, I think so. That's my working theory. That's my hypothesis is that they create people who would think about nothing. They were very simple to be in that trusted role of the plastic surgeon's office because she shouldn't have to think about it. She can't think about it. She can't wonder why people are trying to change their faces and stuff like that. Everyone only lives to be 30. Why does anyone need plastic surgery? So she's not there to ask any questions. So I think they put a simpleton in there on purpose, who also looked perfect on purpose. So people would think they're going to come out purpose. So I do think it was purposeful. I'm just not sure that the rest of the movie, you have to look for the depth in it. But like, for instance, like people had different colors and like their ages, their year of birth and their age was defined by their colors and different shades of colors like red, pink, green, lighter green. They were blues. Ironically, all the men had like giant scoop necks, but the women did not. But their sides were open, so basically their asses were revealed, half the time. And of course, then there was the Sandmen, who were like the police. But the only thing the police had to do was stop runners, who were people who were trying to escape this one city, this internal paradise, the world's greatest indoor pleasantry prison. But they didn't know anything else. They barely knew there was an outside. Some people didn't even think there was an outside. The Sandman seemed to know a little bit more, and there were obviously quadrants that things went wrong. So there's a lot implied in this movie. I wonder if it was. Did you read the book?
No, I did not. But I think the book came out just about 8 years before. So I think that it was after Huxley's book. But also in the book, the age was 21. I think when they decided to produce the movie, they said, we can't deal with it didn't even have to have like 7, 14, and 21. They ended up having a bunch of younger cast. And I think they said, let's just not deal with the younger cast, particularly if they're going to show like all that side boob.
Right. And plus Disney had all the child actors and twins locked up by that time. Actually, I'm not even sure there were child labor laws that required you to, well, didn't require, but made it attractive to have twins as your actors so that you could double the amount of work you could get out of them a day. So yeah, another interesting intersection between law and entertainment. All right. So Logan's Run takes place in the future. We don't know exactly when. It's a long time, but it's not necessarily that long from now. I mean, the Peter Ustinov character, who's simply known as Old Man, also a doddering simpleton, but maybe senile as well. Clearly, he is at least second generation of what he is, maybe more. But a lot of the buildings that okay, guess what part made me giggle the most?
The reflecting pool.
Yes. Thank you.
That was one of the main reasons I wanted to rewatch the movie, because that was also a timely topic as well. And I clearly remember that scene. It's framed perfectly. There's the pool, there's the Capitol, you see the Washington Monument, and it's really a total ripoff of, Planet of the Apes, but except they don't know what it is, but it's like something that you as the audience knows exactly what it is. On Planet of the Apes, obviously he knew what it was. And it was like amazing. Oh, wow, we're on Earth. I thought we were on another planet. And here it's just like, it's a gut punch for the audience. When you first saw it, it's like, wow.
Yeah. And the reflecting pool looks like it does very much right now. So
yeah.
Congratulations. Good job, America. All right. So they live in these domes, and these domes are connected. And when you go into the inside of the domes, it very much looks like Disney World did when in the 70s, when it was, when they first made Magic Mountain and made everything look futuristic, which of course looks old now, but you had monorail systems and sort of curved upward buildings, and it was
or if you've been to JFK lately, the old TWA building, which is now part of the True JetBlue complex, they totally turned it into a hotel, and it looks exactly like it did, like in the 70s. It really has that feel. If you're ever back in New York, definitely fly through JFK and spend the night in that hotel. It's awesome.
Okay, I drive to New York because it's close enough. But the last time I flew into New York, I flew into Islip, West Islip.
Oh, okay. On Southwest, I assume.
Probably. But I'll look to that next time. I remember the TWA building. I remember there was a Pan Am building also, and two airlines that no longer exist. That's sort of sad.
Well, it's weird how like those buildings. I remember going to the airport just to watch planes take off and land, because my father's trying to make me want to become like a pilot, whatever. So whatever age we were, we would go there, and sometimes you'd welcome people that were coming in, whatever else. And the Pan Am building and the TWA building seemed so massive, right? Now the TWA building is there as it was, right? And all this stuff is built up around it. You barely can even see what it is. And when you're in there, it's because you just didn't fly nearly as much back then. Flying was more like a luxury than it is today, where it's almost like just a necessary evil. People have to fly a lot. And, remember we even would like dress up.
Right.
We wouldn't fly around in sweatpants and Crocs.
Right. No, absolutely. No, my grandfather, probably both of them, sometimes both of them together would take me there, and we'd park on one of those utility or service roads and watch those planes take off and on. And, that's what kids love that. And I'd call everything a helicopter, even though they were airplanes and things like that. And, it was a very cute story for them. And now I remember it fondly, and it's nice, but it must've been something that how kids can look at the same thing all day long and think it's interesting, like a cat looking at the window and like a bird is there and it's amazing. So that was the same thing. All right, back to Logan. So I don't know so much if there was a caste system or not so much. There were the Sandman. There seemed to be everyone else, and there was this computer that ruled everything. It must have been AI. They never showed any humans that were working beyond it. The only other class of people we saw that I recall, was the doctor, his assistant, and sort of like they were like the Cubs. They were almost like the Warriors almost. It's like they were, but I think they said they had their own sort of rules where when you turned 17 or 16, they would kick you out. And they lived in like one of those, you had to take like one of those like tubes, like a Habitrail thing, almost felt like, to get there. And I'm not sure why they actually went there. They were looking for the Ankh thing. But yeah, they had their own thing. I remember he called out one of the Cubs and said, well, once you turn 16, they're going to kick you out. Reminiscent of a Star Trek episode where that kind of like the same thing. But do you remember that? They're saying that they could only be so old before they got kicked out of the Cubs? Right. And it said they're going to turn on you. And he said, how old are you? 15, 16? That scene was so weird. I mean, first of all, the guy doesn't pull out his gun. By the way, those guns, sometimes they could barely hurt a person. Other times they could blow a wall apart. uh, very inconsistent, and it's not like Star Trek where they would say set to stun. It was, you know, let's just say the special effects were very much before Star Wars, where expectations were lowered. But it doesn't matter. I think the movie, but I mean, they're all surrounding them with weapons, and none of them do anything. They cut the other Sandman pretty good. I don't know why they were delaying here, other than it's like pitch meeting where the screenwriter goes, because I wrote it that way, and I needed Logan and the woman to live, so the Cubs can get.
But the guns were cool in the sense that they didn't pretend to be like particle beam weapons. They were still like guns firing, but just the way the flares would like shoot out, it was clearly shooting a projectile as opposed to like a beam, which was always like kind of weird when you watch like these bolts of light supposedly traveling at the speed of light, like coming out of like a blaster, and you actually see it moving. It's like, how is it traveling at the speed of light? How is that light? I like the guns, but you're right. Maybe they were loading out armor-piercing ammo versus different kind of ammo, but sometimes it would totally blow someone up, and sometimes it would barely do anything.
Right, and I don't know why sometimes they sent one Sandman or sometimes two Sandman, after the runners. I mean, I guess nobody learned how to fight or whatever the case might be, but you'd think that, like, somebody is that desperate to leave their entire society, you would need some backup. We have a couple comments from Rams fan who, by the way, is actually going to be a guest on the show next week. So I appreciate him being here. It looks like he's coming to us from YouTube, which is actually good news. He said that they had a small airport, and his mom and pop there was a mom and pop diner there, and you could watch the planes go. So, while eating on the deck. So apparently this is something that like all kids like to do, and parents or grandparents would do it. He also says he's never seen the movie, so he can't contribute much on that, but he's just here to support, and we appreciate that. And maybe now you'll see the movie. It was free on Plexiverse, so I just watched it. When did I watch it? Friday, Joe? I told you when I finished it.
I think so, yeah. I watched it like as soon as I heard that it was the anniversary, and then remembered the reflecting pool scene because I had to see it for that.
Okay, so I guess we should start sort of at the start. We are introduced to the movie. I mean, first of all, they give you a few paragraphs, sort of giving you the landscape of the movie and showing you the domes, and sort of outside the domes where there's some Land of the Lost like effects as to foliage and lakes and whatever. And then when you zoom into it's like Disney's World of Tomorrow, not quite Futurama. And I think that the opening scene is that we are meeting Logan and what was Richard Morgan's character's name? The co-star, the foil friend.
The other Sandman?
I forgot his name too. I'm sorry. This was just. I mean, let's call
something with a number because it was Logan's 6 and Jessica 5.
Right. Well, they all they all have numbers, which I think tells you how old they are. And as far as Logan said, he had 4 more years, so 6 must mean he's 26 years old.
I was thinking it was how many times they were renewed.
No one got renewed. So that was the whole thing.
But I mean, they had to fake people out to think they got renewed.
Right. So there's something called the renewal ceremony, and everybody carousel, and everybody who it's their last day, they assemble, but also the entire the population of the city does, which is supposed to be thousands of people, and they did they gave us like about 100 or so people, but inside it's sort of like the Senate in Star Wars. You can tell it's bigger, and everyone's there in the different colors to watch. The people who it's their last day, which is I guess on their 30th birthday, we don't see their faces. They're all wearing masks and sort of black and white uniforms, and their masks are sort of like hockey masks, and it's a hope that some of them survive that and go through renewal. During the ceremony, they go through a beam. It's like if you've ever seen No One Can Save You, it's like the tractor beam where aliens abduct people. I mean, you've seen it in a million movies as well. And they sort of float up there. What is that chain where anybody can go and pretend that they're skydiving?
Oh, where you like sit in this big room where there's all this air blows up.
Yeah, you're in a tube.
I've done it. I don't know. I don't know that there's a chain. I just did one that when I was in Florida.
Yeah, no, it's a chain. I've done it too. Anyway, it's sort of like that, except you float on the up and the higher, but you're sort of swimming and waving around, and the people chant. It's sort of like gladiatorial, but nobody's fighting. Anyway, when you get to the top, you burst into flame and explode, and you never. But still, the folks there cheer when that happens. I guess it's the bread and circus. But they also believe that some of them get renewed, although nobody's ever seen anyone who gets renewed. They just assume that they got a new face or were born again. And maybe that's part of why they have a plastic surgeon there as well. There is some sort of black market involved in that. I guess, which didn't make any sense because there's no money. But people found out about the plastic surgery clinic. I guess they could go there when they weren't supposed to. And everyone's afraid of the Sandmen for good reason. What was the other thing? The other thing about renewal is there were clearly some people who had access to other information, and the clue to who they were generally is they wore an ankh, the Egyptian symbol for fertility, sort of cycle of life kind of thing, which I guess is a bit of an irony. I'm not sure if it was picked on purpose. Probably it was.
I'm not. I always thought that basically they probably timed the amount of births they had with the exact amount of people that got annihilated at Carousel and just renamed them and threw a higher number on them to say, hey, this is that person. Obviously, you don't remember anything about your prior life, but it's still you, and that was sort of like the subtext that, everyone's renewed. Everyone hopes they get renewed, but like they were controlling sort of the number of births because when we go through that birthing center, and they see all the babies. It's just like, all right, we just wiped out 30 people last night. We'll unfreeze 30 embryos and have them born. It didn't sound like they were like being birthed sort of like in a traditional sense. It seems like they were just like bioengineered. So it'd be real easy to keep the balance like that and then fake everyone out.
No, you're 100% right. In fact, one of the scenes was that Logan was sure that one of them was his, and it might have been a new Sandman because it was time to birth a new Sandman. Yeah. And his partner's like, "What do you care?" He's like, "I don't know. That could be mine." He's like, "Do you know who the mother is?" He goes, "I'm curious, but I'm not crazy." It's like Logan was asking like some basic, simple questions, and his partner, I wish I could remember his name now. I'll just keep calling Richard Morgan. Was like, stop asking questions. What's wrong with you? Everything we need is perfect for us. And the Sandmen did live better than others. They didn't show you how they lived, but it was clear that they had a bit more spacious rooms and whatnot. Also, if you wanted to have
Francis, it was like Francis 7 or something like that.
Francis,
I had to look it up. It's bothering me too.
That's fine. This is better. We're going to call him Francis. Francis 7. Who only had 3 years left, and he's less curious if I crack the code correctly. But you could put yourself into something called the circuit, and that meant that you were available to have, you were horny that night, and you were available to have sex with, a stranger, and it clearly wasn't only for Sandman. It seemed to be for anyone, and you could sort of, it was sort of like, I guess, Tinder, if you both swipe right, the person would appear in that particular night. And when Logan first meets, now I'm going to do it again. I don't know her name either. The character that
Jenny Agutter.
Jenny.
She's off. Jessica 5 or Jessica 6.
Jessica 5. Okay, better. Jessica. So when we see Jessica, she is clearly put off that he's a Sandman. And of course, we learn later that's because she's sort of part of this sort of resistance, or at least part of this underground tunnel. She has knowledge that others don't, and they're willing to, kill to protect it. And the dudes that she was with, we only saw 2 of them, but they didn't wear ankhs, so maybe it was just jewelry for a woman.
Well, don't forget, she wasn't the first person that showed up in the circuit. for him. So there's also that basically this is 1976, touching on sort of like homosexuality was probably almost near taboo to some degree for a PG rated movie. And then he even asked her, because like, are you into women then? So it was like almost like they double dipped on the whole homosexuality thing there. And then I honestly, I thought she was intrigued that it was a Sandman and that she thought she could leverage him to sort of somehow escape, and whether or not she was linked to the whole thing about the master computer, like reprogramming him to seek out Ankh and whatever the name of paradise was, Sanctuary, just kept coming up. What is the Sanctuary?
That's an interesting theory. That's maybe almost as interesting as my Farrah Fawcett playing Molly or Holly theory.
Yeah, I'm not sure she was able to stick herself into the circuit to do that. But one thing before we get too far ahead, that scene at the beginning, the carousel scene, was, for its time, was incredibly intricate. Because, I mean, all those people were suspended on cables. That wasn't CGI, you know. So I did a little research into it. And then you said they were ascending up and blew up. They just felt that was too complicated. So they lowered them down. And they had that big crystal was at the bottom of the room. And they just flipped it. And it looked like they were floating up. Because they kept getting tangled up when they were going up and everything else. It just seems like all the stuntmen in that, like, said so many times, they got all twisted around each other. It was an absolute mess. It was really hard for them to do. It's just, you don't really think about, like, in 1970, 50 years ago, there was no CGI. They just basically said, how the hell are we going to do this? We're going to do it old school with cables. And it's like, it's just crazy.
Right. Yeah. You know, the old Greek play version of cables and all of that. So yeah, it was. So you're right though, because it was clearly free love, very reminiscent of Brave New World, in that it wasn't just homosexuality; it was whatever. It was you could have orgies, you could have So it was very in the that was part of, and again, Brave New World was the same thing, that they inundated the people with easy sex to keep them happy. Also in Brave New World, there was Soma.
And drugs, yeah.
Well, Soma was the drug. But I don't know. They didn't really go into what people ate here or if there were any drugs. I mean, there were drinks, which I assume were alcoholic. It looked like they were having like little aperitifs of, cognac or, Prosecco or, something that was a little bit unclear, a little amo, but I'm not really sure. A little port. I'm just going through dessert wines that I can think of the name of. But yeah, Logan at first, he seemed more intrigued by her, but an interesting thing was they also talked about consent every time. So it was, do I have your consent? Do I have your consent? So while he would get a little pushy, he wouldn't cross any lines. There was something which was way ahead of its time, as far as movies and science fiction was concerned. This is prime Kirk sexing down everyone. Now, seemingly it seemed like he had their consent, if not their enthusiastic, participation. But the act of the free love having to require both. I'm going to keep saying swipe right because that's as close a reference as I can do. But also they had to double check, and when she refused, it took her 3 times to say no, I'm really sure. Then he's like, okay, goodbye. I'm sorry if you change your mind. Let me know. But I really got the sense it was from a Sandman because that was putting herself into danger. I didn't think she was part of some sort of conspiracy or plan by Mother. I'm just going to call Mother, like Alien, the computer system. But you might be right. It could have been one elaborate plan. Anyway, the Sandman catch a runner, and on that runner's person, they do find the Ankh. And so after somebody is eliminated, a cleanup crew comes right away, and they dust it with some gas, and the gas quickly but slowly, in sort of disgusting ways, evaporates the person.
It's like claymation video, like kind of stop motion crap that it looked like.
Right. They turn into various degrees of a red blob until they disappear entirely. It's they didn't bother with like going zombie and then skeleton and then dust. It was just red blob. Everyone turns into soylent brick instead of soylent green. But they do take the personal effects to like headquarters and they put it in through some analysis, and then the computer asks the various Sandman to do a debrief, and then there's on the side you can see there's different computer banks with a different color light representing the different shades of colors that the people wear. So it's clearly some sort of caste system. I'm not sure what exactly red versus green versus blue versus yellow does, if it's there to represent anything other than Simon and what years they're in. But there were people in different shades of those colors which weren't represented in the four primary colors. And I don't mean primary colors like paint. I just mean what they were on the wall. Anyway, the debrief for Richard Morgan is rather short and sweet. The debrief for Logan, and maybe it is because he's an inquisitive fellow. Maybe it is because he met the woman with the Ankh. See, Rams, we were able to fix that situation.
Great.
Yeah, now people know who we are. So look at that. Perfection in real time. You on the download, you don't know what we're talking about. Our name tags were not on the screen. Just for anybody who's any curious. So they had some technical issues in the background. So I'm just happy as punch that we're actually on YouTube and that somebody's seen us on YouTube. So that's actually a really good sign. And now this is up here too. So that's cool. Logan's was longer, and there are very awkward delays in how long it takes for the computer to say anything, or when the computer doesn't say anything. Like if the computer isn't answering the question, it just shuts up, and you're supposed to infer that whatever the unhappy answer is, that's the correct answer. But it asks Logan about the symbol. And he's like, I don't know what it is. I've never heard the word Ankh. I've seen it. He didn't mention Jessica, that he saw a woman wearing it. So he's sort of protecting her, because he wants to get down with her and boogie. And then they ask about sanctuary. And he's like, I've never heard that phrase. And then they're like, we need you to run. You're going to go undercover and get involved with this Underground Railroad, cult, sect, whatever. People who know the truth or some inkling of the truth. You need to get their trust and you need to run. And he's like, can I have backup? They're like, nope. He's like, can I tell the other Sandman? Nope, it's super secret. And you've got to do this on their own. And then you've got to go and destroy Sanctuary, because there was 1,156 people that are unaccounted for that were not renewed. And that's where Logan finally realizes that nobody gets renewed, because Logan asks, but people get renewed, right? Pause, and the computer says nothing. Has anyone ever been renewed? And the computer goes silent. And right then, and as part of the scheme, they had so everyone has crystals in their palm, and the crystals, as long as they're in a certain color, you're fine. It's red, I think, for everybody, and when it's blinking, that means you're out of time. It's time to go to carousel. And that's when some people run. People don't usually run before that, because I guess life is good. And the system, whatever, it's like Ring cameras. They sort of know when somebody's running and where they are. And for the life of me, this city in this complex looks pretty big, but the people who are running pretty much seem to be that they start in the main plaza. And I guess maybe they didn't have much of a budget for scenery, but like, it's not even like they were taking the monorails to these sections that were limited, like where the Cub Boys were, the Forever Boys were, and sort of. I mean, I got the impression that some of these areas had been used and then became unusable because whatever. Maybe the truth got out too much. Maybe things degraded. Maybe the technology was breaking down. Because why else would there be places that the monorails stop that are sort of ungovernable? And did these Lost Boys count in the population? And did these Lost Boys count in the 1156. I mean, I'm going with the assumption of no. Anyway, my earlier point was, how is Logan alone with one firearm supposed to kill 1156 people?
I don't know. The other thing too is that they find this ankh on the runner, and yet Jessica's wearing it like freely around her neck. It's almost like, hey, you know what? This is sort of like the secret society of people who are going to run, right? And to your point earlier, maybe like why wait to the very last minute when you're blinking to run? Why not run like a couple of days before? You'd probably be able to get, especially if you knew the secret passageways through whatever the hell the sewers and stuff they went through, you know, which we'll get to later. But it's like there was a secret way to get through, and obviously using the ankh was sort of like the key. So,
or a couple of years before, like,
yeah.
I mean, I know life was good there. Everything was provided for them, and they had happiness. They didn't seem to have much in the way of jobs, though a few people did. I'm assuming the colors, you know, like Star Trek, represented some sort of job that you were in, although it might just have had. I'm sort of rejecting the year of, you know, how much time you had left on your, you know, on your lifespan, because of the shades of color. So unless, like, you know, when you were 23 and a half years, you went from light green to, you know, to dark green on this, you know, the second half, you know, we never got into that. We never learned it, but the colors were clearly important to an extent. But not even just like, how's he supposed to kill the 1100 people? It's like the computer wasn't so smart, because like nobody presumed that this woman was going to come with him and lead him, and she didn't know how to get there. Like, how's he supposed to know the way? Like, doesn't the computer know that, like, without people there, you know, lions, tigers, and bears would rehabilitate the world? You know, wolves. The dude's got to sleep. He didn't pack any food. I mean, this was. I mean, he's supposed to live off the land? I mean, you know, yes, he's, you know, 26 years old, but he's literally a sheltered life. I mean, it's like a simpleton sending him out into the wild.
Yeah, I didn't get the feeling they were sending him out to kill these 1,151 folks, but just to find out where the hell they went and just figure out what, like, is there a leak in the city where they're able to get out through a, you know, an escape hatch or underwater or whatever the heck there was?
No, it said destroy sanctuary. Now, whether that meant destroy sanctuary and kill everyone in it, I don't know. Maybe it just meant destroy sanctuary. So maybe he just sets his blast to, you know, C4 level and, you know, just blew up all the buildings or whatever the case might be. Shock and awe.
But what if sanctuary was really just a way out, right? And destroying sanctuary would just be to shut down the way to get out. Say there's no more sanctuary. You can't get out anymore. Those people are out there. Who the hell knows what happened to them? Maybe they got eaten by cats, you know.
Right.
Well,
and they also gave us very strange signals in that, I mean, not to cut too far ahead, but when we find Old Man and when they convince Old Man. So Old Man, I guess I have to give some spoilers, but the movie's 50 years old. So Old Man makes them promise to bury him, and they don't understand the concept of burial. So when they leave, he's like, what kind of people are you? You promised to bury me. And they're like, you know what? Come back with us. Meet all of these people. And he's like, people? I haven't seen people in a while. The point of why I'm spoiling this part of it is because when they're walking through the reflecting pool, he's like, I used to go fishing here with my dad or with my parents when there were fish. So on one hand, you think that all life is dead. However, the man lived with like 100 cats. So not all life was dead. So, I mean, so it was a very strange, again, going back to, there could be lions, tigers, and bears out there and wolves and whatever. And what's he supposed to eat? An Old Man, all I saw him eat were peanuts.
Yeah. Well, there was also the scene before that where the stupid robot Box, whatever his name was saying he used to freeze, you know, life from the sea, and then turned into just freezing all these runners who were trying to get out, but they were passing through, and they were showing all those frozen people there. That was, you know, it was just a mad robot run amok. I don't get the feeling this was like a Soylent Green situation where they were being fed back into the, you know, into the food chain. But I think all those runners were all frozen by that Box thing, right?
Could be. That is extremely reasonable thing is that, I mean, there were definitely also penguins that were frozen. All right, we should probably get to when Logan's going undercover. The woman finally decides, Jessica 5 decides that she believes him, and she's slowly falling from, but it started with levels of non-trust, though over the course of, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, she finds trust in him, enough so that she doesn't want her 2 friends, which she was originally conspiring with to kill Logan. She wants to get away. And I guess that's probably the reason why they went to the dilapidated sector where the kids, the runaway kids were, because Logan shot at a Sandman. I think he even killed the Sandman in their escape. And so now she's convinced that he really wants to get away. And so she helps him. And as part of the help, he's like, I'm going to change my face, even though it doesn't work. We already, one of the earlier runners was killed, and his face didn't match the face on Logan's camera. And the computer's like, confirm it's the right body. And he's like, oh, got plastic surgery, which, at first it could just be the computer saying any dead person is a good dead person. But I think the flack was that plastic surgery, while it might help a little bit, it didn't really. The computer still knew who you were through, whatever, your DNA or whatever, other biometric things that it scanned. But Logan, despite that, and knowing that, his first move is to go to the plastic surgery clinic and get his face changed. And because he's a Sandman, he walks right in. But the doctor, he's also part of the movement, and he doesn't trust the Sandman. So he's basically setting it to kill. But Holly or Molly, whatever the Farrah Fawcett's character's name is,
Holly,
like, she gives a tell on her face, and she's like, ooh, that doesn't seem right. And then so Logan figures it out. He may not be world wise, but he is streetwise in the ways of Utopia. And so they get into a little tussle, and eventually the doctor ends up getting, cut to slices, though not really, but killed on his own laser machine, which was set to laser you, but not instantly heal you, which it could also do. And there was no sort of anesthetics used, so Logan was of his complete wits and sex appeal. The doctor also said it was that Logan's like, hey, you look great. He's like, yeah, it's my own work. And so the doctor too was not old, but we don't know what his full age is, and we have no idea whether his status and his ability to wear silver, which of course all people in the future wear silver bodysuits. We don't know if that meant he was allowed to live longer, but just look younger. Anyway, Farrah Fawcett. That's a cue.
Yes, so she ends up showing up again when they're down with the Cubs, right? Like she followed them there?
not with the Cubs. So so they go through so the way out, there's obviously a bunch of levels, including the way with the Cubs is not the only unused portion of, I'm just going to call it Utopia. They never use that name. I'm going to use it as the city's name. They just call it the city. Everything is very simple names, the city. But the city has lots of unused places, which for whatever reason, probably maintenance and whatever. I'm not sure who uses it, who fixes it, who keeps it up. If they just let it die and then they start again, or if the computer, cycles it down, or it has its own life cycle. But whatever it is, they go through sort of unused levels that, seem like more warehouses, but they're still part of the complex. And right outside that door, there's a bunch of people there guarding it. There's like 25 of them already, and they're there to stop Logan and Jessica. And then Holly comes out, and she's like, hey, those are the guys that killed Doc. And that's right where Logan and Jessica are trying to convince them that they're trying to seek sanctuary. They're on the right team. She saw Logan kill a Sandman. And she's like, Holly, don't you remember that the Doc was trying to kill Logan and Logan fought for his life? And like awkward pause, and then Holly, the oatmeal brain, which again I think was perfect. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's right." And then and she's like, "What about the other Sandman?" "Oh yeah, there was another Sandman, and Logan shot at him." And then they're like, "Oh, maybe he's okay." And they're sort of like debating it, though you can't see their faces because they have like these, I don't know, light spears that blew hot gas. It was unpleasant. Um, and then, but the Sandman were tracking them, and they set their phasers to blast and blew out the wall. And Holly and others got killed in that. And as the Sandman are chasing all of the people who are guarding the Underground Railroad, Logan and Jessica use this as a opportunity to escape. And Logan's blasting away at friend and foe alike because they have no friends, and they make their getaway. But that's where Holly died. And I mean, she was probably in the movie for a total of 7.5 or 8 minutes, and she was like the fourth or fifth listed actress on the credits. All right, thank you, Rams fan. Appreciate your
and maybe even the highest paid.
Okay, Michael York was a pretty big star back then. I mean, I think he had already been in the Three Musketeers franchise back then. Not 100%, but yeah, he was a pretty big. So was 50 years 2026? It was 50 years 2025 or 2020? Like, what was the original year of release of the movie?
Of 1976. So
okay,
it was 50 years ago. And it was 50 years ago to like it probably released on like 4th of July weekend, and then it was like supposed to be a summer movie blockbuster. Who the heck knows?
Okay, so Michael York was already a movie star by then. That much I know, because
I mean, so if you look, I was just looking at right now on their IMDb. Jenny Aguilar had a lot of stuff before that too. So recently, or like back in the day. All right, so before that, there was a movie which you may or may not have heard of called Walkabout.
Nope.
This is like 1971.
No, I didn't hear about Walkabout until like Crocodile Dundee and Men at Work, and
like Crocodile Dundee, like use the term. It's basically that's exactly what it's about. That she and her little brother get stuck in the in the outback in Australia. But
what else?
She's been in a lot of stuff. Like Michael York, I guess I'm not really placing him. Like I guess I place him in Curb Your Enthusiasm because he plays himself. They open up the restaurant with Larry David, and everything just goes awry. Because there's so many people on that show play themselves.
Right. Well, Michael York was D'Artagnan in the Three Musketeers franchise. So, and that movie had at least 3 movies. There was a Three Musketeers, the Four Musketeers, and I think then they had a D'Artagnan movie, which I think was a flop. But more recently, like younger people will know him from Austin Powers. He was Austin Powers. He was also in one episode of Babylon 5 where he played somebody who thought he was King Arthur, or the reincarnation of King Arthur. But yeah, Michael York was a big deal in the 70s, sort of disappeared for a while, and then sort of had a comeback second act. I'm not sure if he's even still alive or not, but so what else was she in that we would know at any point in her career? Like give us like her top 3 most famous movies that are not Logan's Run.
Well, it says known for Logan's Run, Walkabout, The Avengers, believe it or not. So she was in the Avengers 2012 movie. Okay. And also an American Werewolf in London. I guess she plays like the girlfriend.
All right. So there we go. I mean, Avengers and American Werewolves are much more famous than Walkabout, at least to me. So what is she in, like a lot of horror sci-fi movies or anything? I mean, she looks familiar.
She's also Call the Midwife. She's in 134 episodes of that.
Of what?
I don't watch it. A show called Call the Midwife.
Never heard of it.
Anyway, she's in 134 episodes, and it's still running. It's 2012 to 2026.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, a solid working actress. All right. Well,
Captain America, the Winter Soldier. She's Councilwoman Hawley. That's from 2014.
Well, then she must be Councilwoman Hawley also in Avengers as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. World Security Council. That's how they credit her for that.
Okay.
So she's still doing stuff.
So she's part of the Slovakia Accords or whatever that was called.
I'm really not a big comic person, so I couldn't tell you any of that stuff.
It's your one piece of geekdom that doesn't fit in the puzzle. So, yeah. Okay.
But anyway, she was like probably at her prime in this movie, kind of way, the way he was showing off her body and everything. She turned into she wasn't Farrah Fawcett pinup, but she's still the posters of her from that movie just actually did make circulation.
Yeah, no. She's a little bit girl next door. Obviously, not really the girl next door. Very pretty, but I mean, with Farrah Fawcett again, half Hawaii. But I think that she was cast purposefully to. I mean, Farrah Fawcett is probably the original big time mainstream pinup girl. Though I mean, certainly there were Sophia Loren's and Raquel Welch's before her, but I think Farrah Fawcett brought it to everybody's bedroom, so to speak. Made it. Anyway, not important. I mean, it is important, but it's not important for this particular show. We can probably do another show on pinup girls in the 70s and 80s. Maybe I'll get Heather Thomas to guest on it. Probably not, but maybe. Anyway, so they get away, and while the journey is fraught with peril and danger, it's fraught with almost no peril and danger. I mean, they don't encounter a rattlesnake, they don't encounter quicksand, they don't encounter scorpions, they don't encounter any animal life, no other people. They make their way, within a day's walk to Washington, D.C. So obviously Utopia is, I don't know, let's just call it Fairfax County. I mean, they...
Or maybe it's Baltimore.
You think you can walk to Baltimore to DC in
I don't know. They walk from DC to Manhattan in that stupid the day after, no, not the day after, the day after tomorrow, in the middle of frozen tundra.
Well, maybe they skipped the downhill skiing parts of it. I don't know. That's not a realistic walk either. So yeah, I don't know, but everything is all swampy and deciduous and whatever. And, DC reverted to a swamp and all the buildings are covered with ivy. We see the Lincoln Memorial, Washington Monument, the Capitol building, but they're all structurally
intact.
Yeah. They see Lincoln and the Lincoln statue and his face is there. And, they've never seen a beard. They've never seen lines on somebody's face. They only have the vaguest idea that maybe it's a giant, maybe that's what getting old looks like. What is all that? And it occurred to me then that nobody in the movie did have facial hair, and that goes sort of well with yours. That in the book the kids are 9, 12, 14. Though at that point you can get peach fuzz and you have to start shaving, but let's just assume that they genetically altered that out of people and that they no longer showed signs of aging other than, basically gradually, getting from infant to 30. We did see some children in there, but children don't have parents. I mean, it's taboo to know who your father and mother is, though clearly it's conceived through the circuit, or at least the people believe that it's conceived through the circuit. I shouldn't say clearly because maybe it's not at all. Who knows how the youths are harvested? Also, I got a strange, when they were in the nursery, there were two sides to the nursery, and one they were looking at fondly, and the other they were looking at not so fondly. And I was thinking that maybe it was too racy for the movie, but I was thinking that maybe on their right, as they were facing us, the side with the darker windows, maybe that's where they put the defective children, who maybe that's what they were going to repurpose for food.
I don't know.
Okay, am I the only sick fuck that got that?
I really feel like they're thawing out these things, sort of as they need them, because they're trying to keep the population in sync, right? So you need to have some sort of not even call it birth control, just basically say, look, if we eliminated 30 people, we bring 30 people in. That's how we keep everything in balance.
So one thing Logan's Run has in common with Star Wars is that the stormtroopers have really horrible aim, and they do sort of establish that with Logan in the beginning, where he you think he's playing with his food at some point where he keeps missing the runner, and I think sometimes he was, but most of the time he was just missing. And then Francis Seven shoots the guy. Is like, you were taken all day. I had to shoot him because you kept missing.
Yeah, the stormtroopers had terrible aim, except when they're aiming at the Jawa and their sandcrawler. And then Obi-Wan basically says, "These are precision laser marks on this thing. This just couldn't just be anybody." It's
That's
like,
right.
that didn't stand up well. That didn't age well.
No, it didn't. And the worst.
They should just edit that out of the movie.
Yes. On a little side note, footnote to Star Wars, the Stormtroopers' aim has not improved any in the newer products as well, which I think is sort of idiotic, and that's like a trope of the Star Wars universe that like maybe they should fix and make it a little bit harder for the heroes to evade or whatnot. But again, that's unrelated.
But unless you take off your stormtrooper outfit and become sort of like Rogue, so to speak, then all of a sudden your aim miraculously improves. Right? Because in Rogue One, he started as a stormtrooper when he met up with her, right? And then it just all of a sudden now he's got precision aim.
Right, Finn. Yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, and the stormtroopers' uniforms don't offer any armor protection. So you would think that the helmet, since most of them are clones, it's not there to protect their identity. And I know they're not clones, all the way through. But you would think that it'd be like RoboCop, that it would like have computer, readouts in there to improve it. Nope. Just there to make them look scary and intimidating. That's it. Dopey. All right. We should probably get back to Logan's Run. And I need to stop. I need a different tangent word or segue other than all right.
So the first life they see, other than the old man, are all these cats, right? Mm-hmm. What do they eat?
Yeah. And they don't know what a cat is. And they don't know if it's dangerous or not, or whatever the case may be. And then old man is living in the Capitol building in some library, and where apparently there's plenty of peanuts and plenty of cats. And yeah, what are the cats eating? We don't see them bringing in mice. We don't see them eating birds. There's certainly not a kibbles and bits or what do cats eat? What are they called? Like whiskeys? What is a cat food? Anyway, there's no cat food around. Obviously, these are things that were not important to the movie makers. Like, everything's sort of provided for, but I don't know. They didn't really show you how things were provided for. Anyway, Peter Ustinov is old man, sort of looking a little bit like Mel Brooks as Moses.
Yeah.
He's wearing togas and he speaks English, but he's rather doddering. He's not really afraid of the Sandman and Jessica. He doesn't really know what they are. He knows they're people. And while he seems coy and shy and reluctant, like, I didn't get fear off of him. So he also seemed to have the mind of a babe a little bit.
Well, I don't think he's ever really seen anyone else. Or, obviously he knew his parents, whatever, but it seems like maybe he's second or third generation. And it's like there's just not a lot of people out there. And if you do encounter people, there's no reason to be afraid of them. It's not sort of like, a Mad Max world where they're out to steal your cat food or your dog food.
Right. He knew his parents, and he also made some reference to his grandparents. Now, whether he knew them or just knew that his parents were born to other humans, I don't know. Why he's there alone, by the way, we never find Sanctuary. We never see Sanctuary. We never know if, in fact, there are another 1,156 people, or they've all been eradicated, killed by lions, tigers, and bears, disease, or frozen, or populated. If they repopulated and made what was the city that Kane supposedly created, like Kane Tubalt or Tubalt Kane, like. We'll just call it Babel, even though that's not correct. But anyway, we never saw a new Babel or old Babylon or whatever it is, wherever Sanctuary is. We never saw anything with Peter Ustinov, any source of knowledge, food, sleep, whatever. And they're like, can we stay here? And they're like, sure, it's the people's building. They're like, well, it's the people's building. So that much was instilled in him. He knew there was, and then, but he said, it says it right on the wall. So he could read. They're like, what people? And he's like, these people, there's pictures of them all over the walls. I don't know. But he, of course they wanted to see, they didn't know what a beard was. They're like, your hair is white. He's like, yeah, it's been like that for a while. And they ask his name. He's like, oh, it's, I wish I could tell you, but it's been many years since I've remembered it. And, while he's old, he didn't seem to be like, 1,000, but, I guess the implication is maybe he is. But, and then since they don't know what old is, they're like, come with us on this long, long walk with no supplies. And he's like, okay, sounds good. Nothing like who's
going to... Don't forget, first he wants to touch the cracks on his face. It's like, do those hurt? And then I touch them, and that's when she's like putting her hand out, and he's kind of like, what's this young hottie's like one all of a sudden like wants to touch my face. But is this made? Do those cracks hurt?
Well, he also, he had the, the temptation, like it's like he was tickled. It's like when you push like the Hillbilly Doze Boys, belly. He's like, hoo. It's like, I don't know if he, maybe it's that he just hasn't had the touch of a person, period, or if it was, a young woman, and it's still got him excited a little bit, or just like nobody's touched him and he wasn't socialized, or all of the above. But like he never said, I'm old and like walking all day to your city. That I don't know if I have that in me. But just like they say again in pitch meeting, it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. So off they go, and he's sort of giving them a tour of things. That's where he talks about that there used to be fish and now there's no fish. I guess at some point indicating the reflecting pool was populated with fish, and I guess they ran out of oxygen or whatever's in a reflecting pool to have fish. There's no fish in the reflecting pool now. I guess at some point someone put them in as a fishery, or I don't know. Like the little details about touching the lines on his face and asking if they hurt. I think that was a really good little detail, but there were other little details that they just completely skimped over, which obviously, from like if someone was to redo Logan's run, I would like them to touch upon all of these little details.
There was a series.
I remember that vaguely. Tell me about the series.
I don't think I watched it, or I did, and I never rewatched it. Apparently, it was horrendous. They just didn't have the budget for it, and I think it came out too close to like after Star Wars, and people just kind of lost interest. But I think I was reading about it. The biggest issue it had, for some reason, it ran against Monday Night Football. It's like only 3 channels, right? It's like, okay, let's do this on Monday night. And since the football season would start at the same time the new season would for, remember like it was September that you'd always get all the new shows, and after around like March you're watching reruns, and you'd look forward to getting this. So it's like, all right, let's start a new show and let's run it on against Monday Night Football, starting in like September or October. So I think that was it. I think they didn't even, I remember just reading about it. They said that they didn't even air all the episodes. They canceled it and said, all right, we're not even going to air this episode. So some of them, I don't even think you could stream it anywhere. But I'm not sure it's worth watching.
It's probably not. And it's not the only sci-fi movie that they tried to turn into a TV property. I remember the Planet of the Apes had a TV show that was on for a short period of time. And they had the guy, Roddy McDowell, just play a different chimpanzee named Galen. So, and then they had 2 dudes in it who looked vaguely like Starsky and Hutch, but they weren't. In fact, the blonde guy, he was the guy who replaced, who was Marshall from Marshall, Will, and Holly on Land of the Lost. They had like Uncle Jim or Uncle Rick.
Oh, yeah, okay. The uncle came in.
Right. Well, it's the same actor. He played the main human, the blonde guy. And I think that the brunette guy might have been like one of the cops on one of the like Adam 12, ripoffs. But also it's like that's around when Glenn A. Larson came into the world and gave us like Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars really up what people were expecting when they were watching sci-fi on a screen. And I know that some of that stuff is semi laughable now, but back then, you know, Battlestar Galactica, you know, it was a spectacle on TV. There was nothing like it. So yeah, poor Logan's Run. So anyway, they do come back, and on their route back, they come to what is sort of like cascading waters over what's clearly man-made, and there's steps, and it's so Jessica Five had never seen it before. Logan knew it was there, but he's like, I just always assumed it was part of the, you know, that we got power from the running water. So basically, hydroelectrics plays some role in it, but he knew enough, I guess, as a Sandman to know that it existed and was there, but she didn't even know it existed, and she had no clue what it was for. He at least had some clue as to what it was for. So the Sandman clearly have a little bit more on the folks. Anyway, they tell the old man to wait there as long as he can, which is an undetermined amount of time. And obviously the man has a lot of patience because he's been hanging around in the Capitol building for, I don't know, 100 years. They go in, you know, through the back way. They retrace some of their steps without barely any encumbrances. It's just so coincidentally another carousel. Now, here's a question for you. People, I guess they control the dates of birth, which is again feeds to my maybe they somehow figure out who's pregnant and they take the eggs out and they only use certain fertilized eggs, because otherwise they would have to have carousel every day. And it didn't seem like it was a daily occurrence. It seemed like maybe it was like a weekly occurrence. Did you get that sort of sense as well?
It definitely was. It was a pretty common thing, but I think it was like, you know, bread and circuses. It's like, you know, back in ancient Rome, there was something going on, like, you know, in the Colosseum was every day anyway. You know, it's like this way to keep people sort of like, you know, amused, so to speak. Maybe not every day. Maybe they had to have like a quota to say, hey, you know, we're going to just like wait for there to be like 30 people to put up. Otherwise, there's only one person. It's like it's going to be pretty boring carousel.
And so they get to the one of the walkways or one of the upper levels overlooking carousel, and right before it's starting, they make an impassioned plea to the crowd, who's barely listening. They turn around, but they're not interested. They want to go to carousel. They've been programmed to go to carousel all their lives. They still believe in renewal. And Logan's making speeches. He's really beating around the bush, which seems to be foolish. She's a little bit more convincing. No one gets renewed. Have you ever met anyone that's been renewed? And in the course of this, I don't remember if the Sandman come after them then, or it's some, you know, or it's earlier when Logan has to kill his friend Francis. But at some point they say something where the people do decide to follow them. I don't know if we see that or if we just see Old Man, who's managed to build a fire on one of the...
Did they show their crystals were clear? Is that something that got them? Because when they went to themselves, their crystals turned clear. Then they said, "You don't have to die." You know, I've been outside, I've seen it. You know, and then next thing you know, they're all outside seeing the old man with his, like, he might as well be fishing in there too, like the rod and reel. Like where'd you get that?
Right, and how do you start a fire on one of these, you know, cement, you know, blocks? And where do you find the wood? And anyway, old man, there's clearly more to him than meets the eye. But they all come out and they sort of form a semicircle around him. And, you know, they sort of touch his face and he sort of giggles because the first person is, you know, a young, blonde, attractive woman who's, you know, curious. I didn't bother to remember the color to see if certain color garments have more curiosity than others. I don't think that was really even part of it. And he sort of had the same shy, you know, giggle, tickling effect when she's touching his hair and his face and pulling on his beard, and you know, and I guess he doesn't mind being a zoo animal because, you know, now all of a sudden he's around all these people and they're all young and hot, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. I guess that ends, you know, the society as they know it. I do know at some point when Logan's making his escape, he shoots at some of the panels and a lot of the city explodes. So I guess they, you know, it started a chain effect. That's what I'm looking for. Chain effect, domino effect, where everything starts blowing up. So if you blow up where the computer's centralized hub is, it's going to slowly blow up everything. And so the city is assume it's unusable at that point. And now these people are going to have to live off the land who are somewhere between 0 and 30 and have no idea how to live off land. And they have an old man to guide them who at least knows where they can find peanuts and cats.
And cats, yeah.
I presume they will together find sanctuary, or maybe they are sanctuary. I don't know. It sort of was an abrupt ending, but sort of fit with the rest of the movie. But what do you think we're to learn? I guess one is paradise isn't so paradisical. Wake up, you are living in the matrix a little bit, or utopia really is dystopia, and free will is better, or in order to have this kind of a perfect life, your lifespan has to end at 30, which, kind of sucks. I don't know. What did you take from this, and what did you think the end was supposed to tell us?
I don't know. It probably wasn't a very good book. The movie just happened to come out at the right time. Even if they made that movie now, and they had all these great special effects and everything else, had proper blasters and whatever, I don't think it'd be very good, because it's like people expect more from a story now. The only reason why I like this story is because I remember it from like 50 years ago. But I think that there's a lot of unanswered questions. Like, we don't know what caused them to build these, forbidden city, the city under the dome. Like, what happened resource wise, Armageddon wise, was the entire, world like polluted with something, and they had to live in there and had to limit their lifespan to control resources, and that maybe that whatever that was 200 years ago is no longer in play. Now all of a sudden the planet is habitable again. So I think they didn't really do a good job explaining either or of those solutions. So these people could all be screwed, in which case they're all going to die a lot sooner than they would have, right, if they had to die at 30. Or they're going to live much longer lives like the old man, because, maybe he's just living off of old cans of dog food and cat food, and there's just not enough of it. But definitely that robot says that they used to get all their food from the sea, and then once that stopped coming, I just started doing whatever was going on. So I don't know if there isn't a sanctuary per se. I think it was like an invented thing inside, that if you got outside, there was a sanctuary out there. That it's not really a place to go, that it's just really getting out of here.
So do you think that the AI that was in control of everything was also sheltered as well? It just assumed that there was this myth of sanctuary, so assumed it was true. And for all we know, the 1,156 people who are unaccounted for, who went through Carousel, are dead. DC's a swamp, but we didn't see a single insect. I would think that these people have lost their immunity to things like, to anything, but no one's immune to malaria. Are they still getting vaccinated?
Yeah. I don't know. I really think that they're really all pretty screwed, because Logan blew up literally the chain reaction that just basically everything started falling down, and however they were getting food, whatever it was, whether it was some Soylent Green thing with the deformed babies, who the hell knows? But it seemed like they didn't have a thing to worry about, and there was definitely things been self-sustaining with this 30-year limit, for generations, and you all of a sudden now you take those people, throw them outside.
Well,
In the middle of the swamp.
Do you think maybe it's a metaphor for the fallacy of religions, and that you go to heaven and every now and then there can be, there's an afterlife for you?
Yeah, I didn't think of it as that kind of a metaphor, but that definitely, it could be sort of symbolic of religious beliefs, in sort of not where the reincarnation is sort of whatever, it's sort of like the afterlife.
Right. To avoid Lord of the Flies, you have to go in a whole different direction.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to evolve to Lord of the Flies, but you never know.
By the way, the remake of Lord of the Flies on Netflix, it's a limited series. It's only 4 episodes. It's really well done. Some of those kids.
Yeah, I'm on episode 3 right now. It's it's over the top. It's really brutal.
It's brutal. It's sad. But it's I thought it was going to be a 10-episode series, so it's not, which is good because I'm like, I don't know how much more of this I could take, and then it's like over, and I'm like, oh, that was really good. Anyway, I actually think that if somebody was to redo this movie, they wouldn't do a movie. I think they would actually do it as a series. It would have to have a limited amount of shows, which is actually very popular now. And I think that somebody could address a lot of issues. I don't know that they necessarily have to address what caused the end of civilization. I think that we've well accepted there's lots of reasons to cause the end of civilization. But I think they would have to be a little bit clearer. I'm still sticking with my implication that the brown windowed side of the nursery was like the kids didn't come out exactly right, that maybe they were growing to, make a salty and green kind of thing. I mean, after all, what else would they be eating once they ran out of fish?
Who knows?
I mean, they
maybe they had greenhouses in there, or who the heck knows? So just also, they kind of did remake this. There's a show called Silo, which is basically these people living in a underground in a silo in a very sort of like caste type system with all these like rules and stuff. There's no age limit, but there's a birth limit, so not everyone's allowed to procreate. But anyway, it's on Apple, so I know you haven't been seeing it. Just dropped its episode 1 of season 3 over on Friday. Very intriguing concept. We still have no idea what the hell the silo is.
Well,
if you're ever on Apple TV and you watch it, or just get a free 7-day trial. Might not be the show I'd watch first, but it's definitely worth watching, like season 1.
No, I don't do free trials because I forget to cancel them, or I talk myself out of canceling them, and I'm going on the belief that at some point all of these services are going to start trading content, and eventually I'll see them all. And I'll just be missing other new things. And that's actually proven itself to be true. I mean, like a lot of things that have been on Peacock and otherwise, like Netflix had The Man in the High Castle, which was, I think, an Amazon show.
It was an Amazon show, yeah. We watched it again. I think it was on Netflix. It was still on Amazon. I think Last Ship is now showing up other places. You're right. It's all comes down to licensing. But Apple has really done a good job of keeping their sort of stuff sort of within their silo, and behind their stuff. So if you want to watch any of this stuff, I don't know that any Apple stuff really showed up anywhere else. And some of it's extremely popular, like Ted Lasso, because it's not, dystopian horror, whatever else. It's just comedy. Everyone can kind of relate to it.
I saw the first. I saw all of the first season of the morning show except for the last episode, and that was a good show. That was very enjoyable. Very Aaron Sorkin-esque in its own way, with a little bit of Succession thrown in there. But okay, so I do believe that somebody could do a good job with Logan's Run if in fact they wanted to, and paid attention to the details. I don't think you need to fill all the details in, but I think a few would be key. I don't know what I would do with Sanctuary, but I definitely think that there should be things like insects out there in the swamp. So,
I think it maybe came down to budget or just lack of thought. For all we know in the book, they could have actually mentioned there being sort of some wildlife out there. Hey, something else I wanted to mention too is that that water cascade scene. That's actually a real thing in Fort Worth, Texas. And it's kind of become sort of like an institution. People like to go to it. And there's the scene that they were originally in, where I think she takes off. They both take off their clothes, whatever. But I think they show her was originally 9 feet deep, and then people would just end up drowning it. This is in the late 70s, early 80s. They had to adjust the stupid park so that nothing was more than 2 feet deep, because people want to dive into and recreate sort of the scenes, and people just stupid. They'll jump in water without knowing how deep it is, and even whether they can't swim or not. So I think it's actually still there. I'm not sure if it's just it's probably just something in a in a city park, just as it's probably not nearly as big as they make it look. It looked like it was like a water hole. It wasn't even lagoon sized. I mean, it was a small pond, if anything. Folks, learn to swim. I mean, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and parents teach your kids how to swim, at least so that they don't drown in 9 feet of water. I mean,
it's like they talk about the deaths attributable to the heat wave in Europe or in France and saying, oh, this many were drowning. It's like, I don't understand, how is the heat wave linked to drowning? And then they show these people jumping off 40-foot bridges like into the Seine. It's like, I'm not sure you want to be in the Seine anyway, but if you don't know how to swim, just don't follow other people than jumping in.
Sadly, I have more information on this because somebody actually did the stats on it. I believe it's Mike Pesca on the gist, so I want to give proper credit, assuming it is. But so it is. More people are drowning, but the proportion is apparently in the summer. I think it's France that's doing it. They normally have like 38 drownings per 1,000, and they were up to like 40 or something like 42. So yes, there are in fact more people drowning, but also a whole lot more people are swimming or going in the water because of the heat. So to attribute them all to the heat is a bit of sensationalism, but yeah, the world's complicated. Anyway, people learn how to swim, or at least to doggy paddle your way to the edge where you don't jump in the middle, go in the edge, walk down, hold on to the edge, or get floaties. They're cool. It's fun wearing floaties. Just pretend you're a parent. No one will make fun of you.
Well, doggy paddling is swimming. Swimming is like, I guess, being able to keep yourself alive in water if you fall in, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't need to be an Olympic swimmer. Just get there. Anyway, that's our PSA for the day. Yeah. All right. I don't know. I just did it again. I'm going to need to have a little like I need Danhausen to erect an electroshock for every time I say all right that I get shocked. Oh, it worked. Okay. I don't know that there's anything else that we can cover. Sadly, neither one of us read the book, or at least not recently enough to remember it. I think it was more of a novella than really a book. I think it was maybe like 120 pages. It's not that long. I don't think I'm going to take the time to do it, but somebody read Logan's run and do it with a little bit more depth. One big distinction between it and Brave New World is Brave New World knew about the outside world. You could go visit it, but the outside world, they showed you how people lived, and and you could actually do tourist trips, almost like Westworld, to go see how people not in Somaland would live. This was just sort of this myth that only some people came to know. How they came to know it, I don't know. I guess through the Underground Railroad, some people came back and gave information, and some people elected to, have shifts of being guardians in this transition period in the domed warehouse aspect of it, where also we saw no food or sleeping quarters. They just stood there like on the White Wall as the Night's Watch, or the Night's Watch. Again, things that could have been flushed out a little bit more that weren't. In any event, I think we've covered Logan's run pretty well. I'm surprised we went an hour and a half. I wasn't sure if there was an hour's worth of content here.
Well,
Joey,
it might have only been 45 minutes worth of content. We've done 45 minutes of like a bunch of other stuff.
That's because we're professional podcasters at this time, and we can stretch on the time. But I think we've stretched enough. Joey, I know that your band is something that you do want to promote to the extent that there's a regional geographic promotion to it. But yeah, tell them.
Yeah, so the name of the band is called Rushton Motel. Rushton is the name of our lead singer. His name is John Rushton. So I kind of came up with the name to play off of one of the Doors albums called Morrison Hotel. And we decided to demote ourselves from a hotel to a motel. And so all of our imagery is basically like the six of us. By the way, there's six of us in the band. And we're in front of sort of like that motel window. You're probably not a big Doors fan, but there's this Morrison Hotel album, which shows them like sitting behind the window of some cheap dive hotel, probably in like Venice Beach or something like that at the time, wherever the heck it is that they got their start. So like I said, that's really, I don't have any sort of side hustle that I'm doing. Aside from that, I do work part-time, but that's not really sort of anything I need to actually promote. Other than that, happy to do this with you. If you ever end up on Apple, I'm telling you, there's a lot of new content there that you can create sort of like a last minute show. I'd be happy to do with you.
You're always good for that. That is definitely true. And like I said, I've known Joey since third grade, and let's just say that we're a few years out of third grade at this point. For those of you who don't already know, I am Jeff Lippman. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on the X at dose_evil. That is mostly for wrestling nonsense. If you want regular nonsense, it's at IcarusFellMD. I'm rarely on there, but if you contact me or tag me on something, I will then in fact be on there and pay some attention. Or you can just follow me on dose_evil and know that you're going to put up with wrestling nonsense, which often brings up some of our worst sides, but that's okay too. You can find me here on the Sports Jedi Network on Monday nights live at 6:05. Do the MLW Files, probably the only podcast dedicated to MLW, and certainly the only one with my best friend Mr. Thomas, erstwhile of MLW and the godfather of the Bumaye Fight Club. You can. We also did a Great American Bash NXT review here. And the Out of Character podcast, where I had independent wrestler and actor Vinny Pacifico, who booked the guest, Heather, Amber Brooke, who is an actress who her and Vinny just happen to have 5 projects together, but she's been in a whole lot of horror movies as well. And she's booked for a future episode of Garden of Thought later this month. So those are places you can find me on Sports Jedi. There may be others. I hope you checked out the show with Luke Menzies, formerly known as Rich Holland. He's going to be a regular here on Sports Jedi. And you can also catch me on the Wrestling Soup Network, where me and the legendary Lufisto cover LFG. Again, one of the only podcasts covering the LFG. And there's lots of fun stuff great content on Wrestling Soup, but also on the Wrestling Soup and Friendos, which is a separate feed where a lot of the people who are part of the Wrestling Soup family have their own original content as well. And Sports Jedi is kind enough to share some content with us there, as is the PUWF. So thanks to all those people and folks. But yeah, find and follow me. I love being found and followed and all that stuff. And please subscribe here. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at gardenofthought.pod, and you can find Garden of Thought where all your podcasts are found. Thanks a lot, folks. And remember, stay evil, my friends.
All right.